How do you prepare yourself for change? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk through the steps to help you embrace change. G'day hobbyists, Anthony from AOS Coach here, bringing you the strategies and techniques to help you hit your peak gaming performance. So, newsflash, there's a new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar on the horizon, and there's going to be plenty of change. There's going to be changes that are significant to the way that you play the game, probably the biggest change since the death of the old world. I'm not just talking about changes to the way the Balewind Vortex works, but I'm talking about significant changes to the way that you play the game, you build your lists, and some of them are going to be in your favor, while some of them not so much in your favor. Now, you may already have an opinion based on the changes from the information that have been leaked from Games Workshop and some of the other thought leaders in our field. But I need to remind you that these changes are out of context without having the full set of rules and how they're going to impact you and your army. So I guess what I'm going to share with you through this video is what are the things that you need to understand and think about as you're going through the new edition to help you embrace the change in the most positive way. We normally don't like major change and often the fear of the unknown that accompanies change. Now, we've all been through change, and change comes in many forms. Our bodies change as we grow older, we change jobs, we meet new people, we start new armies, we experience new cultures, we try new haircuts, we start new fitness regimes, we end fitness regimes, and we lose friends and families along the way. Yes, you are really enjoying playing the current edition of Warhammer, and you probably know the scenarios really well. Maybe you don't even look at the scenarios in the book, you just know how to play the game. You probably know the most popular armies in your local scene, and you know how to prepare for them at your next tournament. Sometimes we choose to change, and often change happens to us. Regardless, there is only one thing that is constant in life, and that is change. To handle change in your life, you need to accept what's beyond your control and focus on your internal transition into the new reality. Remember that the fear of change does not mean change is bad. What seems frightening at first will actually often turn out to be the best. So why do we resist change so much? Well, neuroscience identifies that we are creatures of habits, and not knowing what's going to happen next can often be scary. Will I be the same type of player in the new edition? Will I remember all the rules? Will I be able to handle all these endless spells and command points? Will I ever get a spell even off with the new Unbind range? We all like certainty, but it's these types of questions that make us feel uncertain and lose that self-confidence that we have. Through certainty, it does bring clarity and predictability, and it's through the change process that this is challenged. So if we're thinking about why we resist it so much, it's often through the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, or the fear of the unknown. These are three of the most common reasons why we are resistant to change. So how do we start the change management process? Well, first off, the most important thing to do when change is happening is to acknowledge change. Now, this is going to sound really silly because I hope everybody knows that the new edition is coming and you probably pre-ordered the books already. However, it's more about the mindset that the game is changing. The game that you love, you play, the rules that you know so well are about to change. Recognizing and accepting this change is certainly the first step towards managing it and embracing change. When that new rulebook drops, you're either going to have to embrace the new change or find a new community of players who play the same way. And the game The Ninth Age is a perfect example of that. There were people from the old Warhammer Fantasy days who didn't want to come over to Age of Sigmar, and they found a new community, and I'm sure they're thriving and they're enjoying themselves. I'm not dissing them whatsoever, but you're either on the bus or you're off the bus. We're often scared of change because we're afraid of the unknown, and a good way of dealing with the unknown is to think through carefully, imagining all of the different possible scenarios and outcomes, and then deciding what is the best and worst case scenarios. And, again, putting our Warhammer Age of Sigmar hats on, you're going to want to probably check out the Warhammer community articles, and you're going to think to yourself, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for me and the way I play, people that I play with, the communities I'm involved with, the style of gaming I enjoy? What does the command point system mean for my army? And how is Inspiring Presence going to impact me? Or potentially the new way of doing, mystical scenery, or potentially even Mystic Shield. Maybe thinking through some of the scenarios, such as, what happens if my opponent has 1 or 2 more command points than I do, or if they have the Umbral Spell Portal. Think of all these possibilities and think of the best and worst case scenario. And when you start thinking this through, grab yourself a pen and paper, write down exactly how this might impact you and potentially some of the examples of ways that you might be able to handle it. Remember how scary it was starting high school or learning to drive for the first time. Sometimes it's not so bad, and what seems scary at first just takes a little bit of time getting used to, and then you embrace the new norm. Now, when big changes occur, it's important to figure out how much control you really have over a situation. Me personally, I'm not a rules writer. I'm certainly not a playtester. Heck, I'm not even an employee of Games Workshop, so I know that I have zero influence or control over the game rule set. But what I can control is the way I respond in the upcoming changes. I can respond to the conversations that I'm currently having in my community, the way that I educate myself, and the way that I continue playing the game. Understand your role and think about how much you can control really puts this into perspective. My comments, both positive and negatively, are going to travel a long way within the hobby community. New players are going to look to me and people like you for your experiences and thoughts on a situation. So thinking as well about your influence and your likes and your dislikes. You may not be able to control the way the game is moving, but you can control how you respond. Even though it can be a tough ask, focusing on the positives can really help you manage change. In fact, you're about to become the change. While the positive aspects of a situation may not be obvious at first, it's worth seeking out, no matter how big or small a change might be, what are the positives in the situation. View change as an opportunity to learn and grow rather than a setback, even if you have to fake it until you make it. It's perfectly normal to feel overwhelmed if the change you're facing is really big or if there's too much change happening at once. It's these moments here that you're best to seek support. Look at your local gaming community, jump on your favorite social media channel, reread the articles that are published by the Warhammer community team or the blogs on the upcoming change. Speaking to others will help you work through any of the issues that you might be having with the change and provide you with an alternative perspective and potentially a view of the change that you weren't prepared for. I know when I was transitioning from Warhammer Fantasy Battles to the Age of Sigmar, my closest friend Deke was a constant source of positivity and insight on why the change was positive. A lot of my frustrations really came from a lack of understanding and, trying to do the same behaviors that made me successful in the old rank and file days in this new way of playing a game. And, those strategies certainly weren't successful and making me successful. So focus on the problem at hand, develop an action plan, and really start seeking advice from people who can provide useful strategies. So to summarize what we've gone through, the only thing that is constant in life is change. So to help you embrace the change process, acknowledge that change is coming. Think about what the possible outcomes are going to be and what are the worst that are going to come from it. Ask yourself how much you can control, identify and celebrate the positives from that change, and if you're still struggling, seek help from your community. So the question I have for you, the viewer, is how are you preparing yourself for change? I'd love you to leave the comments in the comment section below on how you're embracing for change. And if you've liked this video and you found it valuable, make sure to give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you're new to my channel, please make sure to hit subscribe. There's going to be plenty of new content coming pretty soon. We're ramping up pretty hard with a new edition. I'm pretty excited. So until next time, happy wargaming.